The alarm screamed through the medical station like wounded animals. Dr. Una Park dropped her coffee cup and ran toward the emergency bay. Her worn boots slapped against the metal floor as she pushed through the corridor. Other doctors and nurses scattered around her, all moving toward the same destination. The doors hissed open. Una stopped at the entrance, her eyes taking in the scene before her. A massive alien body lay on the operating table, blue blood pooling beneath him. His skin shimmered with a pale silver color, and his breathing came in shallow, desperate gasps. Around him stood 6 Vielthian doctors, their tall frames bent over scanning devices that blinked with angry red lights. "He's dying," one of the Vielthian doctors said, his voice flat and empty. "The poison has spread too far. Our regeneration technology cannot reverse the damage." Una stepped closer. She recognized the patient immediately. Prince Talvor, the young heir to the Velthian Empire. She had seen his face on the news feeds just yesterday, smiling during the diplomatic summit. Now that same face twisted in pain, his golden eyes dimmed with approaching death. "What happened?" Una asked. A massive figure turned toward her. Supreme General Kavros stood nearly 8 feet tall, his armor still stained with the prince's blood. His face carried the weight of 1,000 battles, but now it showed something Una had never seen in a warrior's eyes before. "Defeat. Assassination attempt," Kavros said. "During the signing ceremony. A blade coated with Zelthor poison. It destroys our cellular regeneration from the inside. Our best physicians have tried everything." He paused, his voice breaking slightly. "No one can save him." Una moved to the table, her trained eyes scanning the prince's body. She could see 3 major wounds, each one leaking that strange blue blood. But more than that, she could see the way his organs were shutting down. The poison was systematic, efficient, designed specifically to kill Valthians. "Let me see the scans," Una said. One of the Valthian doctors turned to her, his expression mixing pity and irritation. "Dr. Park, your concern is noted, but human medicine cannot help here. This is beyond your capabilities." "The scans," Una repeated, her voice harder now. The doctor hesitated, then gestured to a display. Holographic images appeared in the air, showing the prince's internal systems. Una studied them carefully, her mind working through years of training and experience. She had performed thousands of surgeries, pulled hundreds of patients back from death's door. This was bad, very bad, but not impossible. "His 3 primary organs are failing," Una said, pointing at the display. "The poison is preventing cellular regeneration, so your technology keeps trying to heal him but can't. It's like trying to start a fire in the rain. The conditions won't allow it." "Exactly," the Velthian doctor said, "which is why we must accept—" "So we don't use regeneration technology," Una interrupted. "We do it the old way. Direct surgical intervention, manual repair. Remove the damaged tissue, flush the poison from his system, and give his body time to stabilize on its own." The room went silent. Every Velthian turned to stare at her. Supreme General Kavros stepped forward. "You want to cut him open? Like a piece of meat?" "I want to save his life," Una said simply. "Your species still uses blades and stitches," Kavros said, his voice rising. "You treat wounds by creating more wounds. The prince deserves better than your primitive butchery in his final hours." Una met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe, but primitive butchery is better than a beautiful funeral." "This is insane," one of the Velthian doctors said. "Human surgical techniques are centuries behind our methods. You would kill him faster than the poison." "Maybe," Una said again. "Or maybe the assassins designed this poison specifically to beat Velthian medicine. Maybe they never considered that someone might use human techniques because they thought exactly like you do, that we're too primitive to matter." She turned to Kavros. "General, I'm not asking for permission. This is a coalition medical facility, and I'm a licensed surgeon with full authority here. But I am asking for your trust. Let me try. If I fail, the result is the same as doing nothing. But if I succeed, your prince lives." Kavros stared at her for a long moment. Around them, the prince's breathing grew weaker. The monitors showed his vital signs dropping steadily toward 0. "You would do this?" Kavros asked quietly. "Risk the alliance between our peoples. If you fail, many will blame humanity for his death." "I know," Una said. "I'm doing it anyway." Something shifted in Kavros's expression. Perhaps respect. Perhaps simple desperation. He nodded once. Una turned immediately. "Juan, get Ore 3 prepped now. I need a full trauma setup, human standard, and get me every piece of data we have on Velthian anatomy. A young man in medical scrubs jumped into action. Nurse Juan Kim had worked with Yuna for 3 years, and he knew her methods. He also knew better than to question her when she had that look in her eyes. You'll also need this, one of the Velthian doctors said. Dr. Thelnix, Yuna remembered his name. He pulled a data chip from his equipment. Complete biological specifications for our species. If you're truly attempting this, you should at least have accurate information. Thank you, Yuna said, taking the chip. I still think you're going to kill him, Thelnix said, but I hope I'm wrong. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Me too. They moved the prince to the operating room, a team of humans and Velthians working together in tense silence. Yuna scrubbed in, the hot water running over her hands and forearms. Through the window, she could see Kavros standing in the observation deck, his massive frame rigid with tension. Juan appeared beside her, already gloved and masked. Everyone's saying you're crazy. Probably right, Yuna said, drying her hands. Good thing I like crazy, Juan said. What's the plan? Keep him alive, Yuna said simply. Hour by hour, minute by minute. We stop the bleeding, remove the poisoned tissue, clean out his system, and repair what we can. It's going to be a long night. How long? Yuna looked at the prince through the window. His chest barely moved now. However long it takes. She walked into the operating room, her team falling into position around her. The overhead lights blazed down on the dying prince. Yuna picked up her scalpel, the simple metal blade catching the light. No one can save him, Kavros had said. Yuna rolled up her sleeves. Let's prove him wrong, she said, and made the first incision. The surgery began at midnight station time. By hour 3, Yuna's hands were steady despite the exhaustion creeping into her shoulders. The prince's chest lay open before her, exposing organs that no human had ever operated on before. Blue blood covered her gloves, warm and slick. Suction, Yuna said, and Juan moved immediately, clearing her field of vision. The poison had done terrible work. The prince's primary heart, the larger of his 2 cardiac organs, showed massive tissue damage. Black veins spread through it like cracks in glass. Yuna had seen similar damage in human patients with certain toxins, but never this extensive. We need to remove this entire section, she said, pointing with her scalpel. It's dead tissue. Keeping it in will just spread the necrosis. That's almost 1/3 of his heart, Juan said quietly. I know, Yuna replied, but the other 2/3 are still viable. Velthians have redundant systems. He can survive with partial function if we stop the poison from spreading. She began cutting, her movements precise and controlled. This was what years of training gave you. The ability to cut into living flesh without hesitation, because hesitation killed patients. Each slice removed poisoned tissue, dropping it into a collection tray that Juan held ready. In the observation deck above, Supreme General Kavros watched in silence. Beside him now stood Ambassador Doyen Lee, a thin human man in diplomatic robes. His face showed worry. General, I must advise you that if the prince dies during this procedure, there will be significant political consequences, Doyen said carefully. He was already dying, Kavros replied, not taking his eyes from the surgery below. Yes, but dying from an assassin's poison and dying on a human operating table are very different things to some people, Doyen continued. There are factions in both our governments who oppose this alliance. They will use any excuse to break it. Then they are fools, Kavros said. That woman down there is fighting for my prince's life, while my own doctors prepared funeral rites. I will remember that, Ambassador. I suggest your politicians remember it too. Below, Yuna moved to the second damaged organ. The prince's filtration system, similar to human kidneys but far more complex, had absorbed massive amounts of poison. She could see the toxin pooling in the tissue, a strange green color that glowed faintly under the surgical lights. We need to flush this, Yuna said. Set up a manual dialysis circuit. We're going to clean his blood the old-fashioned way. Her team moved quickly, connecting tubes and machines that looked ancient compared to Velthian technology. But they worked. Slowly, the prince's blood began flowing through the human dialysis machine, the poison filtering out into a waste container. It's working, Juan said, surprise in his voice. Of course it's working, Yuna replied. Physics doesn't care how pretty your equipment is. Blood in, filter out toxins, blood back. Same principle humans have used for 100 years. Hour 6 arrived. Yuna's back ached and her fingers felt numb. She ignored both. The prince's vital signs had stabilized slightly, but he was far from safe. She still had to repair the third damaged organ and close him up without causing additional trauma. Dr. Thelnix entered the observation deck carrying a data pad. His eyes widened when he saw what Yuna had accomplished. "Impossible," he whispered. "What is?" Doyen asked. "His cellular regeneration is beginning to restart," Thelnix said, staring at the monitors. "Not fully, but there's activity. The poison prevented our technology from triggering regeneration, but by removing the poison manually and reducing the damaged tissue load, she's given his body enough relief to begin healing on its own." "Is that good?" Kavros asked. "It's better than good," Thelnix said. "It means he might actually survive this." The Velthian doctor moved closer to the window, studying Yuna's technique. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, each motion deliberate and controlled. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement. It was like watching a master craftsman at work. "I was wrong about her," Thelnix admitted quietly. Hour 9, Yuna's team rotated positions, each member taking brief breaks to rest. But Yuna never left the table. She couldn't. The prince's life hung on every decision she made, every cut, every stitch. "Blood pressure dropping," Juan announced. Yuna checked the monitors. One of her repairs was leaking. Blue blood seeped from a suture line on the primary heart. "I need better visibility," she said. "Retract that section more, carefully." Her team adjusted the surgical retractors, pulling the tissue back to expose the problem. Yuna could see it now. The Velthian tissue was different from human flesh. It didn't hold stitches quite the same way. She had anticipated this, but theory and practice were different things. "I'm going to reinforce with a synthetic mesh," Yuna said. "It's not standard for Velthian surgery, but it'll work." She placed the mesh carefully, securing it with a different suture pattern. The bleeding stopped. "Pressure stabilizing," Juan reported. Yuna allowed herself one deep breath. Then she continued working. Hour 12. The surgical team was exhausted, but the end was in sight. Yuna had successfully removed all the poisoned tissue, repaired the damaged organs, and stabilized the prince's systems. Now came the delicate work of closing him up. Ambassador Doyen had left hours ago to manage the political situation. Reports were spreading through the station. Some called Yuna a hero. Others called her reckless. Some Velthians demanded her arrest for desecrating their prince's body. Humans debated whether she had overstepped her authority. But in the operating room, none of that mattered. There was only the work. Hour 14. Yuna placed the final suture, closing the prince's chest. Her hands shook slightly now, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. The prince's vital signs showed on the monitors, steady but weak. He was alive. "We're done," Yuna said quietly. The surgical team stood in silence for a moment, processing what they had accomplished. 14 hours of continuous surgery, operating on an alien species with incomplete information, succeeding where advanced technology had failed. "Boss," Juan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did it." "We did it," Yuna corrected. "All of us." She stepped back from the table and her legs almost gave out. Juan caught her arm, steadying her. "Easy," he said. "You need rest." "Not yet," Yuna replied. "We need to monitor him. The next 24 hours are critical." In the observation deck, Kavros stood alone now. He watched as the surgical team began moving the prince to recovery. The massive general's hands gripped the railing so hard the metal bent slightly under his fingers. Yuna emerged from the operating room, still in her blood-stained surgical gown. She looked up at Kavros through the window and nodded once. Kavros nodded back. She had done the impossible. The prince lived. Now they would see if he could stay alive. 3 days passed in careful monitoring. Yuna barely left the recovery wing, sleeping in short bursts on a medical cot near the prince's room. Every hour brought new challenges. His body fought to heal itself, but the damage was extensive. His temperature spiked. His breathing became labored. Twice his heart stopped, and Yuna had to manually restart them with compressions and electric shocks. But he lived. On the morning of the 4th day, the prince opened his eyes. Yuna was checking his vital signs when she saw his golden eyes focus on her. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Then the prince tried to speak, his voice barely a whisper. "Where?" he managed. "You're safe," Yuna said gently. "You're on the Coalition medical station. You were poisoned during the summit." Do you remember? The prince's eyes closed briefly, then opened again. The blade. Yes, I remember falling. He paused, gathering strength. I should be dead. A lot of people thought you would be, Yuna admitted. But you didn't. I'm stubborn that way. A faint smile crossed the prince's face. Then he winced in pain, and Yuna immediately adjusted his medication levels. Don't try to move yet, she said. You've been through major surgery. Your body needs time to heal. Surgery? The prince looked confused. I thought Velthian medicine used regeneration technology. It does, Yuna replied. But the poison blocked that. So I used human techniques instead. I cut out the damaged parts and sewed you back together, the old-fashioned way. The prince stared at her, processing this information. A human doctor performed surgery on me? Yes, and I survived? So far. The prince laughed, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through his chest. But he kept smiling. Supreme General Kavros must be furious with himself. Why? Yuna asked. Because he told you no one could save me, didn't he? He always thinks he knows everything. The prince's smile faded. I would like to thank him. Is he here? He's been here every day, Yuna said. Standing outside your room, waiting. Send him in, please. Yuna stepped outside where Kavros indeed stood, his massive frame still in full armor despite the days that had passed. His eyes looked hollow with exhaustion. He's awake, Yuna said. He wants to see you. Kavros's expression cracked, showing relief so profound it was almost painful to witness. He entered the room without a word, and Yuna gave them privacy. In the hallway she found Dr. Thelnix waiting with several other Velthian doctors. They had been coming regularly, studying the prince's recovery with intense interest. Dr. Park, Thelnix said formally, may we have a moment of your time? Of course, the Velthian doctors exchanged glances. Then Thelnix spoke. We would like to learn your techniques. This, human surgery, we dismissed it as primitive, but clearly we were wrong. The prince lives because of methods we didn't consider. Yuna studied them carefully. Their pride was clearly wounded, but their scientific curiosity was stronger. I'd be happy to teach you, but I'll need to learn more about Velthian physiology too. We can help each other. Thelnix nodded. That seems fair. Over the following days, an unusual partnership formed. Yuna taught Velthian doctors the basics of human surgical technique, while they explained the complexities of their own biology. They watched recordings of the prince's surgery, discussing each decision, each cut, each stitch. It's so direct, one Velthian doctor commented. You see a problem and you fix it immediately. No waiting for technology to respond. Sometimes the direct approach is best, Yuna replied. Meanwhile, Commander Mirai Song, head of station security, continued investigating the assassination attempt. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. Her investigation uncovered disturbing truths. The poison was military-grade, Mirai explained to Yuna and Kavros during a briefing, specifically designed to defeat Velthian medical technology. The assassin knew exactly what they were doing. Who? Kavros demanded. We're still tracking that down, Mirai said, but I can tell you this. The assassin had inside information. They knew the prince's schedule, his security detail, even the medical capabilities of this station. This wasn't some random attack. Kavros's face darkened. You're saying someone in the Velthian military betrayed us? I'm saying someone with detailed knowledge helped plan this, Mirai corrected. Whether Velthian, human, or someone else, I can't confirm yet. The prince, growing stronger each day, received this news with calm determination. They wanted me dead to stop the alliance, he said. My survival is proof they failed. We must make sure everyone knows that. He insisted on making a public statement against Yuna's medical advice. But the prince was stubborn too. The broadcast went system-wide. Prince Talvor, still pale and weak but clearly alive, spoke from his hospital bed. An attempt was made on my life to destroy the alliance between Velthia and humanity. The assassins chose a poison that would defeat our medical technology, believing no one could save me. They were correct. No Velthian doctor could have saved me. He paused, letting that sink in. But a human doctor did. Dr. Yuna Park used techniques we considered primitive to accomplish what our advanced technology could not. She saw a problem and fixed it directly without hesitation. That is the strength of humanity. That is why this alliance matters. The response was immediate and divided. Many Velthians praised Yuna as a hero. Others felt insulted that their prince needed human help. The debate raged across communication channels and government chambers and public forums. Ambassador Doyen worked overtime managing the political fallout. But he also recognized an opportunity. "This proves we're stronger together," he told anyone who would listen. "Velthian technology and human determination. That's a partnership worth building." In the recovery wing, away from politics and debates, Yuna continued her work. The prince improved daily, his natural regeneration finally working properly now that the poison was gone. But his recovery was slow by Velthian standards, taking weeks instead of days. "Does it frustrate you?" Yuna asked during one checkup.
"Healing so slowly?"
"Sometimes," the prince admitted. "But it also gives me time to think. Time to understand what happened and why." He looked at her seriously. "The assassins made one critical mistake. They assumed human medicine couldn't help me because it was less advanced. They forgot that sometimes simple solutions work best. We have a saying," Yuna said. "When you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Velthian medicine is incredibly advanced, but it's specialized. When something disrupts that specialization, you need different tools. And humans have those different tools," the prince said. "We have adaptability," Yuna replied. "We've been solving problems with limited resources for our entire history." "Makes us creative," the prince smiled. "I'm glad for your creativity, Dr. Park. You gave me my life back. Just doing my job." "No," the prince said firmly. "You did more than your job. You risked your career, maybe even your life, on a chance. That's courage, not duty." Yuna didn't know what to say to that, so she simply checked his vital signs and moved on. But that evening, Kavros found her in the station cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee and reviewing patient notes. "Dr. Park," the general said, sitting across from her. The chair groaned under his weight. "General." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Kavros spoke. "I was wrong about you. About human medicine. About many things. You were protecting your prince," Yuna said. "I understand." "I told you no one could save him," Kavros continued. "I was so certain. My people have the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy. How could primitive human methods succeed where we failed?" He shook his head. "Pride. Foolish pride." "Not foolish," Yuna said. "Just incomplete. We all have blind spots." "You are gracious," Kavros said. "The prince was right about humans. You have something we lack. A willingness to try anything. Use any tool, no matter how simple or crude, if it might work. That's not primitive. That's practical." He stood, towering over her. "Thank you, Dr. Park, for everything." After he left, Yuna sat alone with her coffee, thinking about primitive methods and advanced technology. About simple solutions to complex problems. About the courage it took to roll up your sleeves and try even when everyone said it was impossible. The prince would live. The alliance would survive. And maybe, just maybe, two species could learn something valuable from each other. The message came at dawn. Yuna was in her quarters, finally getting real sleep after weeks of monitoring the prince, when her communicator screamed emergency alerts. She grabbed it, her heart already racing. "Dr. Park, we have a situation." Ambassador Doyen's voice came through, tight with stress. "There's been an outbreak on Valthus. Some kind of disease. Thousands are infected." Yuna was already pulling on her clothes. "What are the symptoms?" "Similar to the poison that nearly killed the prince," Doyen said. "But airborne now. It's spreading fast through the major cities. The Valthian medical system is completely overwhelmed." "I'm on my way to command center," Yuna said, cutting the connection. 20 minutes later, she stood in the station's command center with Kavros, Doyen, and Captain Jinho Kang. Commander of the human medical frigate docked at the station. Holographic displays showed Valthus with red zones spreading across the major population centers. "How many infected?" Yuna asked. "Last count was 40,000, Kavros said, his voice hollow. "And rising. Our hospitals can't treat them. The pathogen disrupts our regeneration technology just like the poison did with the prince." "It's the same assassins," Mireille said, appearing on a comm screen. "They weaponized the poison and released it in multiple cities simultaneously. This isn't just assassination anymore. This is terrorism. We need to help them," Yuna said immediately. "There's a problem," Doyen said carefully. "The High Priestess of Velthia, Velana, has declared this a divine punishment. She's forbidden any foreign intervention, including human aid." "That's insane," Yuna said. "People are dying." "She believes the prince's survival through human methods violated the natural order," Kavros explained, his fists clenched. She claims the gods are angry, and only Vaelthian faith can cure this plague. What do you believe? Una asked him directly. Kavros met her eyes. I believe my people are dying, and I don't care about politics or religion anymore. I'm asking for your help, Dr. Park. Unofficially. It won't be unofficial for long, Doyun warned. If we send human medical teams to Velthis against the High Priestess's orders, it could cause a civil war among the Velthians. Some will see it as an invasion. Some will die waiting for permission, Una countered. She turned to Captain Jinho. How many medical personnel can you mobilize? Captain Jinho was a grizzled veteran with gray in his hair and steel in his spine. He smiled grimly. Every doctor, nurse, and medic on my ship. About 200 personnel. We also have field hospital equipment. Basic stuff, but it works. Basic is exactly what we need, Una said. She looked at Doyen. I'm going with or without official approval, but I'd rather have it, Doyen sighed. I'll send the request up the chain. But Dr. Park, even if they say no, I won't stop you. Sometimes diplomacy means knowing when rules matter less than lives. Thank you, Una said. Within hours, the medical frigate broke dock and set course for Vaeltis. Una assembled her team during the flight, explaining what they would face. This is going to be brutal, she told them honestly. We'll be using field hospitals with basic equipment. Manual ventilators, hand-pump dialysis, direct surgical intervention. No advanced technology. Just us, our skills, and our determination. Juan raised his hand. What about the High Priestess? Won't she try to stop us? Probably, Una said. But we're not going there to fight. We're going there to heal. Let them try to stop that. The prince insisted on coming with them despite Una's protests. My people are suffering, he said. They need to see me helping them. And they need to see humans helping them. When they landed in the capital city, the situation was worse than reports suggested. Makeshift hospitals overflowed with patients. Velthian doctors and nurses worked themselves to exhaustion, but their technology was useless against this plague. People died in hallways and waiting rooms in the streets. Una's team set up their field hospitals in a public square. Canvas tents went up quickly, followed by basic medical equipment. It looked primitive compared to Velthian facilities, but it was functional. The first patients came hesitantly, afraid of the strange human equipment and methods. But when the prince himself appeared, helping to carry supplies and speaking calmly to his people, more came. Una treated the first patient herself, a young Velthian girl barely conscious. The plague had ravaged her organs just like it had the prince's. Una worked quickly, using the same techniques she had perfected on the prince. Remove the damaged tissue, flush the toxins, support the body's natural healing. After 6 hours, the girl's vital signs stabilized. After 12 hours, she woke up. After 24 hours, she could sit up and drink water. Word spread fast. The human doctors could cure the plague. More patients flooded in. Una's team worked around the clock, treating people one by one. It was exhausting, brutal work. Each patient required hours of intensive care, but they were saving lives. On the third day, High Priestess Velana arrived with her temple guards. She was an imposing figure, tall even for a Velthian, dressed in elaborate robes that shimmered with religious symbols. You were not invited here, she said coldly, addressing Una. No, Una agreed, not stopping her work on a patient, but people were dying. They are being tested by the gods, Velana said. Your interference disrupts divine will. Una finished securing an IV line before looking up. I don't know anything about divine will. I know about medicine. I know about saving lives. That's what I do. Your methods are barbaric, Velana continued. You cut into flesh, violate the body, force survival through crude intervention. This is not healing. This is butchery. Maybe, Una said calmly. She gestured to the patients around them, recovering in their beds. But they're alive. Ask them if they care about my methods being barbaric. Prince Telvor stepped forward. High Priestess, with respect, these people are my responsibility. I choose to accept human help. You are young and foolish, Velana said, corrupted by foreign influence. I am alive because of foreign influence, so the prince countered. As are these people. Look at them, Velana. Really look. They were dying and now they're recovering. Can you honestly tell them to die for the sake of tradition? Velana's expression hardened. I can tell them that shortcuts bought with impurity lead to greater suffering. What happens when humans leave? When we depend on their methods and lose our own way? We won't lose our way, the prince said. We'll learn new ways. Dr. Thelnix is already studying human surgical techniques. In time, we'll combine the best of both approaches. In time, we will lose ourselves, Velana said, but some of the certainty had left her voice. Una returned her attention to her patient cleaning an incision site. High Priestess, I don't care about your politics or theology. I care about this person in front of me who needs help. You can debate philosophy all you want. I'll be here doing my job. Velana stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned and swept away, her guards following. But she didn't order the humans to leave, and more patients kept coming. Over the next 6 weeks, Una's team treated thousands of patients. They taught Velthian doctors and nurses their techniques, creating impromptu training sessions between emergencies. Captain Jinho's crew worked miracles with basic equipment, proving again and again that advanced technology wasn't everything. Juan collapsed from exhaustion on day 28. Una found him sleeping in a supply closet and ordered him to rest for 12 hours. He argued. She pulled rank and he finally agreed. How do you keep going? He asked before sleeping. Because they need us, Una said simply. Sleep, that's an order. By week 5, the plague was under control. New infections dropped to nearly zero as Mireille's team identified and arrested the terrorists responsible. The cure was established, documented, and could be administered by Velthian medical staff using the hybrid techniques Una had taught them. Over 40,000 Velthians had been saved. High Priestess. Velana visited the field hospital one final time. She found Una treating one of the last remaining critical patients, her hands steady despite obvious exhaustion. You were right, Velana said quietly. Una looked up. Surprised. I was wrong, the High Priestess continued. I let my beliefs blind me to reality. These people live because of you, because you cared more about their survival than about proving anything. That is its own kind of faith. I just did what needed doing, Una said. No, Velana replied. You did what others said was impossible. You used methods we dismissed as primitive to accomplish what our advanced medicine could not. That is not just doing what needed doing. That is wisdom, she bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. The gods send us teachers in many forms. I should have recognized that sooner. Una didn't know what to say, so she just nodded and returned to her patient. Sometimes, she thought, survival wasn't elegant. It wasn't pretty or sophisticated. It was just necessary, and sometimes that was enough. The ceremony took place 3 months after the plague ended. The grand hall on Veltis gleamed with traditional architecture, towering crystal columns that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. Una felt distinctly out of place in her formal dress uniform, uncomfortable with the attention and ceremony. Relax, Juan whispered beside her. You deserve this. I just did my job, Una muttered. You saved a species, Juan corrected. There's a difference, the hall was packed. Velthian dignitaries in elaborate robes stood alongside human diplomats in more conservative attire. News crews from a dozen worlds recorded everything. This ceremony would be broadcast across the galaxy. Prince Tailvor, now fully recovered and radiating health, stood at the front of the hall. Beside him was Supreme General Kavros, his massive armor polished until it shone. Ambassador Doyen stood nearby, smiling broadly. Even High Priestess Velana attended, her expression serene. The prince began speaking, his voice carrying through the hall. 3 months ago, an assassin tried to kill me. They used a poison designed specifically to defeat our medical technology. They believed I would die, and with my death, the alliance between Velthia and humanity would crumble. He paused, his golden eyes scanning the crowd. They were wrong. A human doctor using methods we considered primitive saved my life. She did what our most advanced technology could not. And when a plague struck our people using the same poison, she and her team saved over 40,000 Vialthians. The prince gestured and Una was gently pushed forward. She walked to the front of the hall, her heart pounding. Dr. Una Park, the prince continued, you have shown us that advancement is not about having the most sophisticated technology. It's about having the courage to use whatever tools work, the humility to learn from others, and the determination to never give up on a life worth saving. Kavros stepped forward, carrying a small box. Inside was a medal, intricately designed with symbols Una didn't recognize. The general's voice was rough with emotion. This is the Star of Valor, Cavro said. The highest military honor of Velthia. In our history, it has only been awarded to warriors who sacrificed everything for our people. Today, for the first time, we award it to a non-Velthian, to a healer who fought harder than any soldier to save lives. He pinned the medal to Yuna's uniform. Then, surprising everyone, the massive general knelt. His armor clanked as his knee hit the crystal floor. I told you no one could save him, Cavro said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. I was wrong. You did more than save one life. You saved our future. You have my gratitude, my respect, and my apology for ever doubting you. Yuna helped him stand, feeling awkward. General, you were protecting your prince. I never blamed you for that. I blamed myself, Cavro said. Now I thank you instead. The ceremony continued with speeches from various officials. Dr. Thelnick spoke about the new medical protocols they had developed, combining Velthian and human techniques. Captain Jinho received commendations for his crew's work. Ambassador Doyen announced a new joint medical training program. But Yuna barely heard it. She kept thinking about the last 3 months. The patients she had saved, the ones she had lost, the exhausted faces of her team, working impossible hours to treat people they had never met before. The young Velthian girl who had been her first plague patient, now fully recovered and smiling in the crowd. That evening, after the ceremony ended, Yuna found herself in a quiet garden behind the hall. She needed air, needed space away from the crowds and cameras. You're not good at celebrations, are you? Prince Talvor's voice came from behind her. Yuna turned. The prince stood alone without guards or attendants. Not really, she admitted. All those speeches and medals. It feels strange. Why? The prince asked, genuinely curious. Because I just did what any doctor would do, Yuna said. I saw people who needed help and I helped them. That's not heroic. That's basic human decency. The prince smiled. Dr. Park, most people would not have challenged an entire medical establishment to save a dying alien prince. Most people would not have defied religious authority to treat a plague. Most people would not have worked themselves to exhaustion for strangers. What you call basic decency, we call extraordinary courage. Maybe, Yuna said, or maybe humans are just stubborn. Perhaps both, the prince agreed. He looked up at the stars. You know what impressed me most? It wasn't your skill, though that was remarkable. It was that you never hesitated. Every decision, every action you committed completely. No second-guessing, no self-doubt. Just clear purpose. Doubt kills patients faster than any disease, Yuna said. When you're holding someone's life in your hands, you can't afford to hesitate. That's what makes you exceptional, the prince said. That certainty of purpose, that absolute commitment to preserving life. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then the prince spoke again. The Galactic Coalition wants to establish a new medical corps. Human doctors and nurses working alongside alien physicians, sharing techniques and knowledge. They want you to lead it, Yuna blinked. What? Ambassador Doyen will make the formal offer tomorrow, the prince said. But I wanted to ask you personally. Will you do it? Will you help us build something new? I'm just one doctor, Yuna protested. You're the doctor who proved that working together makes us stronger, the prince corrected. You're the doctor who showed us that simple solutions can solve complex problems. You're the doctor who saved my life and the lives of 40,000 of my people. If anyone can lead this effort, it's you. Yuna thought about it. About all those patients on Valthis. About the Velthian doctors who had learned from her and what she had learned from them. About the way different approaches to medicine could complement each other. I'll need a good team, she finally said. The prince grinned. Juan has already agreed to be your second in command. Dr. Thelnix will represent the Valthian medical community. Captain Jinho's entire crew volunteered. You'll have whatever resources you need. Then I'll do it, Yuna said. 6 months later, Yuna stood on Earth, back home for the first time in over a year. She was at the medical academy where she had trained decades ago, speaking to a classroom full of young students about to begin their careers. They're going to tell you that human medicine is primitive, Yuna said, pacing in front of the class. That we're behind other species in technology and advancement. And in some ways that's true. We don't have regeneration chambers or cellular reconstruction devices. We still use scalpels and sutures. She paused, meeting the eyes of her students. But we have something else. We have adaptability. We have determination. We have the willingness to use any tool that works, no matter how simple or complex. And we have the stubbornness to keep trying when everyone else says something is impossible. A young student raised her hand. Dr. Park, what was the most important lesson you learned treating alien patients? Yuna thought about the prince dying on her operating table, about the plague victims in their field hospitals, about Kavros kneeling to thank her, about Valana admitting she was wrong. That medicine isn't about having the best technology, Yuna said. It's about caring enough to use whatever you have available. It's about seeing a problem and fixing it, directly and without hesitation. It's about being humble enough to learn from others and confident enough to teach what you know. She rolled up her sleeves. An old habit now. And it's about remembering that every patient, human or alien, is someone worth fighting for. Someone worth saving. The students listened intently, and Yuna saw in their faces the same determination she had carried her entire career. These young doctors would go into space, would treat alien species, would face impossible situations, and they would succeed because they understood what really mattered. Not the sophistication of your tools, but the strength of your commitment. Not the advancement of your technology, but the depth of your compassion. Not your species or your methods, but your willingness to do whatever it took to preserve life. After the lecture, Yuna walked through the academy grounds. A message came through her communicator from Juan, currently establishing a new medical training facility on a distant colony world. Boss, we have our first class of mixed species medical students. Humans, Velthians, and 3 other species all learning together. You should see it. It's beautiful. Yuna smiled, typing back her response. Send me pictures. I'll be there next month for the graduation ceremony. She looked up at the sky where stars were beginning to appear in the evening. Out there, humans and aliens worked together in ways no one had thought possible before. All because someone had refused to accept that a dying prince couldn't be saved. All because someone had rolled up her sleeves and tried anyway. Somewhere in the Vaelthian Empire, Prince Tylvor was giving his own speech about the Alliance. Somewhere on the Coalition medical station, Dr. Thelnix was teaching a class of doctors about hybrid surgical techniques. Somewhere on Captain Jinho's ship, medical teams prepared for their next mission. And in a quiet garden on Vaeltis, Supreme General Kavros visited a memorial that had been built to honor all those who had died in the plague, but also a second monument, smaller but just as important, dedicated to those who had saved them. At its center was a simple inscription in both Vaelthian and human languages.